Cool. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the pod by Shiptember, and I'm delighted to welcome the brilliant Col Price. Welcome, sir.
My man. All right.
Welcome to, obviously we've spoken before. I'm
Yeah,
sure people who have checked this episode out will have checked our Learn Squared episode out, which came out, I think, well, at least we spoke, was it a year ago, right?
yeah. It almost, because then the last time I had a Christmas tree up.
Yeah, I was checking. That's
Yeah,
the marker, so we're a
that's
bit,
it.
not fully here, but it's close.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty close.
we'll talk about loads of things, definitely about spaceships, your incredible career, and all these good things. But how's your year been since?
It's been a crazy year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been ups and downs. Yeah, some personal stuff been going on that's sort of taken over quite most of the year. But hopefully that's all done and dusted with now. And yeah, I've done a couple of nice things just to keep me ticking over. And like I was saying before, work seems to be starting to slowly but surely seems to be starting to pick up again. So yeah, and apart from that, I've just been keeping myself busy and trying to get as much personal stuff done as possible, just to keep the old grey matter kicking over.
Which I've definitely been seeing. So you've taken part in Shiptember over a couple of years now, but for those, and we'll get to the work and all that kind of good stuff soon, but for those that are listening who are completely new to obviously our space and what's going on, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a rundown to yourself.
Right. Oh my God, I've got to go through all this again. So I've been in the industry probably, I think it's close to 30 years now. I started off in the games industry. Sort of stumbled into the games industry. I wanted to go into visual effects, but when I left university back in the mid 90s, that was pretty much non-existent. So I kind of stumbled into games, and it was cool because it was sort of like kind of doing the same stuff. And I just sort of kept going and going and going, and I rose rapidly through the ranks as well in there. So before I knew it, I was an art director at Psygnosis just before they got bought out by Sony, and so then I was an art director at Sony. And then I left there to work with EA because EA got me in to help set up their Northwest studio. And I ended up working there for about 6-7 years, and then moving over to Evolution Studios, where we did the MotorStorm games, and we did Drive. I think Drive Club was the last one I was on. I was AD on Drive Club. And at that point, I think I'd hit 40, and I was thinking I need to do something a little bit different, get out of the management stuff, because it was just meeting after meeting after meeting, and it was just dreadful. It's not my kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so decided to leave and see if I could get into film, and it sort of just snowballed from there. And I've always said this in numerous conversations and conversations I've had with you, many times. It just seemed to be like lucky break after lucky break, and just saying, yeah, I'll do that, and just see where it takes me. So I've been working in film now, I think since 2014. I've been doing film and TV, and I still jump back into doing games.
Nice.
And it's just been really nice. I've had a chance to work on just so many amazing projects, and working with, such amazing people. It's just been an absolute blast. My only regret is that I didn't do this sooner.
Right.
I think sometimes I think to myself, I should have gone freelance sooner, and made that jump. But you can never tell, can you, what's going to happen?
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. That's the beauty of, like, I guess when you have a bit of time to yourself just to think. Normally, the first thing you think about is regrets, or just things that you forget to lock the front door, for example. But why do you feel like, or I guess, what stopped you from doing it sooner? Do you think, looking back now?
I think it was a confidence thing. You know,
Right.
because it's very, very, very easy once you get into a career and you're in a stable job and a stable environment, to then say, I'm actually going to just leave all that behind. There's no safety net, you know, there's no financial security. You're literally, you know, you're only as good as your last job.
Hmm.
And you've literally just got to, you know, make that money last. Whereas I think when you're in a job, you know, and you're getting paid monthly by somebody else, then you can kind of just sit back. And I think that's with so many people. I've had so many conversations with people, and they've done exactly the same things. And then for example, when I've met people at 101 and I've talked to them about this, and they're going, I'm in exactly the same situation. There's a guy that I know, that we both know, who's just gone freelance.
Hmm.
And he's a brilliant artist. And he was, for years, he was like, oh, you know, I really should do it. I really should do it. And I kept saying to him, do it. I mean, it's tough. Making that first jump is tough because, like I said, then you're on your own. I mean, the work-life balance is, in my opinion, 1,000 times better.
Hmm.
But obviously you've got the pros and cons of working as a freelancer.
Mm.
And then I was talking to Patrick on his podcast with Camille earlier on this year, and Patrick said to me, he said, "How long have you been freelancing?" Because he said, "I did it," and he said he only lasted a couple of years, and I said, "Well, I've been doing it, you know, since 2014," and he couldn't get over that. He said, "How have you managed to do that for so long?" Because sometimes it can be quite stressful, I suppose.
Hmm.
But to be honest, I kind of like it. You know, I like the sort of, you know, if I'm not working, I can sort of chill back a bit, but I can still work. You know, I still work. You know, my golden rule is, and I said this to Danny, that we both know, and I said to Danny, you know, because he jumped to freelance this year, and I had a really good conversation with him. And I said, when you're not working, you're working.
Hmm.
I said, you got to keep that in your mind, that when you're not working, you're still working. So you're always, because you have to have this perpetual machine, because you've got to keep kicking stuff out all the time, because that's the only way people will follow you, will recognize you. You can start conversations with them on social media. So it's a complete different animal to having that luxury of just rolling into work, getting paid at the end of the month, you know?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the freelance work that you do and have done since that time has purely been creative, right? And specifically making art.
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of the time it is, yeah. But I did do 2 roles where I was at 2 game studios. One was Directive Entertainment, I think they were called, and they were partly based over in Shanghai and partly based in Iceland. And I was the art director, but I also did the concept work, because I said to them, I'm not stepping away from the art. And then I was working with a chap called Bo Anderson, and he was setting a studio, and we were doing a space pirate game for a couple of years, and we had an absolute riot. At the end of the day, we couldn't get funding to do it, but I was the art director, but I was also doing the concept art with a couple of the other guys that I had sort of on the team. So there's always been a little tiny bit of management stuff going in, and then, you know, so I've still kept in with that sort of area. But the film work is always nice to do, because it's just so blue sky, you know. It's just so, yeah. You can have a bit more fun, and it's a faster turnaround, which I prefer.
With freelance though, because obviously, specifically, like, you know, for concept artists, concept designers, people who maybe come from like industrial design into entertainment space, or like you did from one kind of like corner to another kind of corner. Freelance is kind of like, I wouldn't say pitched, but it's kind of like seen as the holy grail, or like the ultimate career step. And then after that, it's like either owning your own IP or maybe a mixture of both. Yeah. But at the same time, the dynamics of freelance and what it entails, and you mentioned a lot of the things there. For some, it's almost like a shock to the system, or like jumping in like a freezing ice, like the managing time, trying to do those things versus the structure of work and all that kind of things you mentioned. Was that the case for you, or because it sounds like it suits you perfectly? Is that the case, and that was that always the case?
I think, and in fact, it's really funny. We were actually having this. My wife and I were actually having the same conversation. I think it was maybe yesterday or the day before, about having discipline and discipline in your work, and the fact that we were both saying she's a garden designer and a florist, so she's really creative anyway, and we often have these conversations, and it was like, you've got to have this sort of discipline and self-discipline. You know, you can't just dial it in, especially you can't dial it in when you're doing freelance work, because you're not going to last. So you've got to have that, you kind of have to go the extra mile sort of thing. So yeah, I think with some people that might be a bit of a shock for them, because they may think, oh, I can just get up whenever I want and, you know, do half an hour's work and then, you know, go back to bed in the afternoon. And I'm not like that, you know. I mean, this current job I'm on, you know, I've been working till 8, 9 o'clock, not because I have to, because I love it and I want to do a decent job. And I think it's having that self-discipline. I think that's really, really important. I think people need to go in and being able to organize yourself, you know, and manage yourself. That's incredibly important to do as being a freelancer.
Is that specifically more on just discipline in the sense of like organization, or are there other layers to that as well? Is that like a drive thing as well?
Yeah, I think there's other layers. I mean, my organization is dreadful, honestly.
I'm sure mine's worse than yours. I can guarantee that.
Honestly, mate, going through some of the files before, and I was looking at my file system, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is dreadful." When I'm working for a client, I have everything like in folders for each day, and everything's called correctly. My PSDs are just a complete mess. There's no titles in them. And there's like hundreds and hundreds of layers. I know where everything is, but if anyone else looked at it, they'd go, "What is that?" It's just like this stream of layers, you know. And my filing system, you know, on all the hard drives, I've got so many hard drives and stuff that's shared on different hard drives. And it's just a complete mess. It really is. And yeah, when I'm doing client work, I have to have everything organized, and I write stuff down as well in a notebook, what I've done, so that when I come to do invoices, I'm a stickler for doing that. I put stuff down almost like what I've done each day on an invoice, or when I message clients of like, you know, I'm sending you this over and it's done this and this, because it's a record. It's a complete record of everything you've done. You know, that's another thing that you really need to be aware of, is to keep that sort of catalog and that listing, because you can get caught out, you know, if you're not marking down what days you're working. And I've done that earlier on when I first started off, where, you know I've missed off days, and so therefore I've missed off paid days, you know, by my own mistake. So definitely having that organization. I've got better as time has gone on. But my personal stuff is just a disaster.
It's music to my ears, to be fair, because it kind of gives me some validation. Because again, I think one day I'll show you some of my structures and how things work, and the whole cross drives thing, and even cross systems thing. It's like it's. I always intend to start off like perfect, like naming convention.
Same.
Give it enough time, it just chaos kicks in, and it just becomes something else.
Yeah.
But for you, like, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but do you think you need that kind of chaos when you're with at least your personal stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm terrible when I always see people and I'm watching them do it. And this is why I don't do tutorials, because I see people doing tutorials and I'm like, oh my God, they're so organized and their layers look wonderful. And, and I'm looking at this stuff and they've done sketches and they've done blockouts and I literally just do nothing. You know, I'll just sit there and go, I'm going to make this spaceship and I'll make this spaceship, or I'm going to do this, this and this. And it's just there. And it's just like, I've just gone at the screen, right? And that's it. And it's done. Right. And then it's like, right, that's off. That's finished.
Yeah.
I'll park it in a folder, you know, with the name. And I do have folders for each year. Like I said, I have started to get better, but my personal work is just a complete technical yawn. It's just like, you know, it's all over the place. It really is. But I kind of like that. It kind of makes me, I always think that you've got to be a bit looser because it helps me be a bit more creative. I don't like when you've got client work and you've got a brief and the briefs come through, you know, you've got to do that work. So you're not kind of really going to learn from doing that kind of stuff. So when you're doing your own work, I always find it's better just to be completely chaotic, because you're going to learn more. You're going to learn more, you know, about your technique or whatever, because you're looser. You're not thinking as much. Whereas when you're on a project, you know, you've got this environment to design. And you know you've got them parameters to do, whereas when you're doing your own stuff, you go, well, you know, what am I going to do today? And a lot of the time I'll just sit at the screen and just start messing around, or I'll start, you know, doing a map painting. And then I'll think, oh, you know, it'd be cool if I did this, this, and this. And 9 times out of 10, what I start off with doesn't end up, it's nothing like what I end up with. And it's all like that, you know, Bob Ross. It's all like happy accidents, which is great. I think that's a really nice way to have them two elements going. You know, one with you're sort of rigid with your client stuff,
yes,
and then you can blow it all out and just have a bit of freedom and just let your brain go completely mental. Yeah. On your personal stuff.
I can totally relate. And a few people I've spoken to, similar kind of thing, like just two hemispheres almost.
Yeah.
And like with the client stuff, it's almost like, it is like two different people. Like the brain somehow kicks in. Maybe it's because it's like, obviously, there's a lot more at stake, I guess, and people observing what you're doing. So you kind of like want to be in your best behavior, best dressed kind of type thing. Like you got a guest over, you want to be a perfect host kind of stuff. Yeah. And then when they're gone, you're just farting everywhere and, you know, doesn't matter kind of thing. Yeah. But with that said, do you find like, do they kind of bleed into each other for yourself?
Yeah, they are doing. I think as the years have gone on, they are doing, because obviously I'm sort of mixing into the two together now. And maybe that's just a confidence thing that I've got used to doing stuff and used to dealing with clients as well. You know, I think when you start off and you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with directors and production designers, you know, sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming, I think, at first. But now it's just like, you know, they're just people just like you and me. You know, they've just got lucky as well to where they are through hard work and a bit of luck. And so there's that sort of fear, I think you would call it. That's sort of gone. That's not to say that it's like a cocky attitude, but it's definitely a confidence thing. That, you know, I don't I tend to now more focus on the work than anything else, and I can be having conversations with people and not have a clue who they are. It's not being disrespectful, but I'm more interested about the work. And then you find out later, oh, you've been talking to the director, and you go, God, good job I didn't say anything, But yeah.
And regarding your personal work though, and when you're like that looseness that we're talking about, how do you keep things moving to the point where they get done?
Again, I think that's discipline. Right. I think as well, I personally, I find that the more I do, the more I can create.
Interesting.
I've just gone through a phase now where it's been particularly quiet with client work, and I've just started to blast out as much stuff as possible. And I think I was doing maybe 2 or 3 shots a day, different stuff a day, and literally having them banked up so I could just keep putting stuff out almost every other day on social media. And I was finding that the more I was doing, the more my brain was kicking in, and the more ideas I was getting, and the more I was trying to kick out. And that slowed down slightly because I've gone back to work, and it's like I haven't really got the time to do stuff, even though I really want to do the stuff. Yeah.
What is, and it could be like a day, a week, or just a general kind of like flow overall. What is the ideal scenario for you as a creative? Like, is it purely personal? Is it purely client, or is it some kind of other configuration?
Oh no, I love working with clients because you tend to do a different. Would it be a different style of work? Well, the client work is almost like you always get to do something different. Always. That's the beauty of this job, is that every job that we do is completely different. Even if you're on a sequel, it's going to be different. Everything that we do is different, and every client has certain style needs, certain design needs. And so that's always nice to have. And then on the personal side, yeah, that sort of mixes and matches into the two realms, I think. But yeah, I still, for me, for a client work is definitely the structure that you need, because I don't think you can be completely chaotic all the time. You definitely need to have that structure. And again, it all boils down to discipline, because you're constantly training yourself, and you're training yourself in that discipline to be, a better artist, how to deal with clients. You've got all those. I mean, I saw Nick's one was brilliant, and Nick nailed it. When he was talking about how to talk to clients, and again, Nick has that really good ability to be completely self-disciplined, which I think is incredibly important.
So last time we spoke, it was very evident, even through your work as well. You love a bit of sci-fi, and last time we spoke, obviously you mentioned where those inspirations came from. But just to let's touch upon that again. Why is sci-fi? Because it feels to me like it's your go-to subject matter, right, when it comes to your personal work. And obviously a lot of the client work that you've done tends to be on the sci-fi realm as well. So yeah, let's dive into the sci-fi aspect and why that's important, or at least what's the draw for you?
Oh, that's gone way, way back to when I was a kid and when I used to be drawing stuff. And I wasn't really interested in doing still life in school. I'd do it.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that I had a really, really cool set of art teachers when I was in school. To the point that I would come in and they would have the set stuff for the class to do, and I would whiz through it. And eventually it got to the point where my teacher, he would come along and say, why don't you have a side project that you can do while everyone else is waiting to catch up, and you can do? So that's where it kind of stemmed from. So it was going from that, I mean, I've always grown up with the sci-fi stuff. It was so, I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, when I was a kid, all that stuff it really started to hit peak. You know, I mean, as a kid, there was all these sort of really, you'd walk into, say, W.H. Smith's, and there'd be all these book covers with like really cool, like Isaac Asimov stuff, and it'd be like really cool spaceships all over. And I'm like, oh wow, really, like that's what I want to do. And you'd be doodling and drawing, and then I got into doing, you know, airbrushing, and I was looking at people like Roger Dean, and then buying all these sort of sci-fi art books that were quite big in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. And I just got completely hooked on it. And of course, there was that huge renaissance there with, you know, there was such a catalogue of films that had come out that was sci-fi orientated at that time. You know, we had that huge explosion where Star Wars came out, you know, and then we had stuff like Close Encounters and Blade Runner, and everyone was doing sci-fi, and some of them were dreadful. But I still went and watched them, and I still sort of ate them up. And it was all fuel for the fire. So that was definitely where all that came from, and I just fell in love with it. The really weird thing was, and it only dawned on me from when you were having a chat with Alex Virginie. Oh, I actually got in touch with the other day. I've been chatting with Alex again, and Alex was the one that sort of got me back into doing the concept art, because when I was at Evolution with Alex was the concept artist, and I was like an AD, and I always wanted to get back into doing that, because it had been so long since I'd done that stuff. So actually getting back and doing that again, I remember I put one piece up, and it must have been like 2014, and it was just like this spaceship flying over a planet or something like that. And Alex has sent me a message on Twitter, and it was something like, "At last, what took you so long?" You know, and I was like, right, okay, I'm going in the right direction. Yeah.
And did that feel to yourself as well, like, why did it take so long when you did it?
Yeah, because it's kind of weird, because when I was in games, it all quickly went into management. I mean, even when I did Motorstorm, when we were doing the second Motorstorm one, I actually got roped into doing the effects, because what had happened was when I was at EA, I think we were working on Battlefield at the time, and they didn't have anyone that was doing the VFX, and EA had this system that I think it was called Lion. And I started working with the guys to try and make it a little bit more artistic friendly, because I knew particle systems fairly well, because I've been messing around with stuff with Max for quite a long time. And when I went to Evolution Studios, and they just released the first Motorstorm game, and I think they had something like 6 effects in it. And I said to the bosses, you know, if we're going to do this next game and you want this all volcanoes and it's set on a tropical island, we really do need to up the ante on the effects. And they were like, oh, great, well, you can do it then. You know, so I ended up working with one of the programmers that I worked with at EA who joined us at Evolution. And we did this particle system that we did. And I think I ended up doing something like 260 odd effects on that game. It was just me and him, the programmer. So that it was really nice to get back in. And I think then I got the bug, and then I moved to a sort of a different department, which was it was called ICG, which was the Internal Concept Group. And I was working with a really small group of designers for XDev, who deal with the development for outside of the main Sony studios. And what we would do is we would all come up with these sort of game ideas, and then we would present them to the exec. And then if they sort of got greenlit from the exec, then they would get farmed out to different studios around the world. So they go all over the place. So it's Japan, and then they might pick them up and start developing them. But I was there doing art direction, doing concept work, and coming up with game designs at the same time. And once I started getting back into that, and I was like, oh, this is actually really, really fun. I need to be getting into doing this. And then when I hit Drive Club, I was determined to carry on and do as much of the concept art as I possibly could.
Interesting.
As well as running the art department and working with the concept guys. Because, you know, you're building tracks, and it was really cool to sit down and come up with the stuff for how the tracks are going to pan out, and then sit down with the artists and talk them through it. And then obviously over the weeks, as everything's starting to get fleshed out, they had a complete point of call with me, because they can go, you know, what do you think about this? You know, and we're checking everything through and going, yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so that was the sort of the catalyst before I went to freelance, where I thought, I really, really miss doing this. I really miss doing the art. And then when I went freelance, I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, why don't I just go back to doing what I used to do as a kid, which is like the sci-fi stuff. And it just seemed to be so logical, because I was that obsessed with it. And then you talking with people like Wayne Hag and obviously Alex and, you know, people like Fred Gambino, who were there at that time, that they were creating stuff at that time what I was trying to learn. And it just felt right to move into that area. And also bring back a sort of nostalgia, because I genuinely think that the 70s sci-fi stuff, even for me, 50s, 60s, 70s sci-fi stuff is absolutely some of the 1950s sci-fi movies. They're beautiful to look at. You know, they're janky as hell to watch now.
Yeah.
You know, but if you watch something like This Island's Earth, they're absolute classics, you know, and you look at the stuff and you go, wow, that's so cool. How did they come up with that at that, you know, Forbidden Planet? Mm-hmm. You know, you look at the stuff and the map paintings that they did for that, and it's, even today, you go, wow, that's really cool. You know, so
when you look back at those kind of like that particular era, is it a specific thing about those kind of movies that really speak to you? Like, is it more just the storytelling? Is it more the technical achievements, the technical feats based on the tools at the time, or is it just pure like imagination? Like, because I have a similar thing as well. Like mine's a little bit more abstract, but I remember growing up every Friday or Saturday, Red Dwarf used to be on the TV. Yeah. I never understood the jokes, but I was like, wow, this is in space and everything looked real, and blew my mind. But yeah, I get what you mean. But continue, sorry.
Yeah, it's weird. I think maybe when you're a kid, your imagination fills in a lot of the gaps. Yes. So you're looking at this stuff, and I mean, I have such a love for cinema as it is, but looking back at that 50s design, I think that's why I enjoyed Fantastic Four so much, because the design work was beautiful, you know. And I kept saying to Josh Veers, because Josh Veers had worked on it, and I kept saying to Josh, you know, the work you guys did was just beautiful. The design work and the cars that George Hull did, and it's just really, there's a really nice aesthetic. And then of course you've got that 70s sort of vibe, which is in some respects has sort of been overdone because we've had that much Star Wars stuff going on. You know, but when Star Wars first came out, that original sort of aesthetic that hadn't been seen before was, and there was such a contrast, because, you know, you're watching stuff that's like, you know, This Island's Earth, or, you know, then you watch 2001, and they're just such a lifetime away from each other, but they're equally as beautiful and as inspiring. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's yeah, I just all that era I absolutely love those decades. I think are just absolutely amazing.
Is there a particular kind of flavor or genre of, or even type of sci-fi that you like? Or maybe I guess for sci-fi, like it's not fair to say which sci-fi do you like, because most people like it all, right?
Yeah.
But there are certain things that maybe pull you more, or you're drawn to more. Is there anything like that for you?
It depends what mood I'm in. Sometimes you just like to go and it's just escapism, and then you go and see something like Interstellar,
Yeah.
and that's on a completely different level,
Yeah.
and it's got that vibe of feeling completely real,
Yes.
and then you've got stuff like The Martian, which is sort of borderline realistic, but again, it's super cool and it's sort of based borderline on reality.
Mhm.
Those kinds of things are really nice, and then you get the completely just bonkers stuff that you watch. Sometimes I'll watch some of the Korean sci-fi stuff, and it's just completely mental. It's just completely wild, but it's great. It's just like, yeah, just let it wash over you. It's cool. But I like darker stuff more than like the fun stuff. I think for me, the darker stuff seems to work. There's not enough dark sci-fi as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how kind of like dark we're talking? Give us a kind of like spectrum.
Oh, you can go as dark as you want there with that stuff. Yeah. No, I mean, yes, I mean, sci-fi. I mean, look at the black hole. That's pretty dark stuff. I remember seeing that as a kid, and I mean, even today, I watch the end of it and do not know what the hell is going on at the end of that film. It's as confusing as Interstellar. You can watch them two films and go, I have no idea what the hell is going on. But
when did that come out? I've never seen that. Oh, not of it, but I've never seen it.
You never seen Disney? It's a Disney film as well.
No,
yeah.
No.
And I think it must have come out 80, 81 maybe.
Right. Okay.
It could have even been earlier. It came out, I think it was Disney's response to Star Wars. Okay. And it gets dark. I mean, towards the end, it gets very, very dark. And completely just psychedelic. I don't know if they've been on mushrooms at the end of the film, but yeah, and the whole thing is very. I mean, the main ship, which I think is called the Cygnus, is gothic. It's very gothic. It's a lot of ironwork and it's a really unusual looking ship. But that's kind of cool stuff. Yeah. I wish that I don't know if they brought it out in 4K yet, but it would be great to see a proper remastered version of that.
I've got to check that one out for sure. Regarding sci-fi itself, the telling thing about sci-fi is normally the aesthetics, right? Like how things look. We can categorize any movie by the design of the spaceships or the aliens or the weapons and the costumes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But for you, is there a particular ingredient or a particular thing that a good sci-fi film needs to achieve for the audience?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know what? You know this from my work. I'm a sucker for scale. So if there's something in there that's just like, you sit there and you go, oh my God, that's just enormous. There's nothing better than seeing like this enormous spaceship that's just like fills the screen. That's cool stuff, and seeing the work that's, all the details and everything, or lack of details, which I always think helps sell scale more. Stuff like that's great. You look at District 9 and that main ship, that's seriously cool work. I mean, that whole aesthetic in that film itself is just bang on.
Oh, so good.
Bang on. And all of in fact, I know Simon Henson that worked with Neil Blomkamp for the visual effects. I've known Simon for quite a few years, and we often talked about that aesthetic that they came up with for Neil's films and what Neil really wanted to do and how to make them look completely realistic. Because I often think to myself, there's that stuff looks real, and why haven't people done more of it?
Yes.
It's you look at Elysium, the design work in that is just like absolutely stunning. And I keep thinking to myself, why don't we have more stuff that looks like that? Because they weren't massive budget films, but they still managed to create stuff that looked so way beyond anything else that had come out beforehand. Even if you look at Tetraville, like Neil's first short film, you watch that and it's like a precursor to District 9.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done that himself. You know, Gareth Edwards is another one that absolutely nails that type of stuff. You know, Monsters is one of my favorite films, and he just absolutely nails everything in it. And he always does scale great. And I remember watching an interview with him, and he was saying the best way of showing scale is to make it show that the vehicle or the subject matter is slightly off screen. So you get like, you know, like the way he did Godzilla, he would show a leg. Or if there's the spaceships from, you know, the creator, that ship is always slightly out of frame, and it works. I mean, I do that myself a lot, you know, because it helps increase scale. And that stuff is real. I mean, the creator was, wow, that was just mind blowing. So good.
I'm so glad you mentioned scale. Like, it is, I think for me, like, top of my list of anything that I want to enjoy or experience or even try and do as well. Yeah. It's just like, you just nailed it. Like, just the awe it inspires. Like, it puts you smack bang in that universe. Not only puts you there, it oppresses you almost as well. Like, you know, you get ready for the ride. And those shout outs, especially with the Blomkamp's films and Gareth's as well. Like, District 9 is almost, for me, it's like a perfect film. Perfect sci-fi film. I was so happy when it came out. I was so happy when I watched it, the feeling that I had. And every time I watch it, it's like just, there's some that age, but because I love them, I forgive them for how badly they age, for example. For District 9, every time it just makes me so happy. And it's the aesthetics. And I think what you mentioned there is how immersive it is. Like, it looks real. It feels real. The design choices, the way they're done is the reason why they look and feel real as well. And like a bit of a tangent, but the T-1000 in Terminator 2, like that is very exotic design. Like, there's nothing technically grounded about that, but the way that was executed, like, that is always going to be timeless. And that's a way to kind of like show maybe through application how it works and all these kind of different things. But again, with the creator and Gareth's films as well, like, yes, like for me, scale is just absolutely. If it scales there and everything else is shit, I'm down. Like, it's all good. Like, you know, they do it right. So yeah, a bit of a geek out fest with that, and I totally agree with you as well. Like, it was achieved, and that was 2009. That's almost, we're quickly approaching to 20 years since those came out. Wow. I think my maths is right when that came. That's right. Yeah. And that was done, and like you said, specifically with District 9, and even the creator now as well. Like, the budget, they were done on a shoestring budget in movie terms, but that was achievable. That's probably down to vision and execution, and obviously the skills that were available. And I totally agree with you. It's a shame that isn't there. Like, moving forward. And I'd love to see that more and more going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree, and especially with seeing what Gareth and James Klein did with the creator. I was expecting, sort of an influx of, decent world building sci-fi stuff and realistic stuff. I mean, those like I think what works with Neil's stuff as well is they create a universe and they stick within their boundaries, the same as what Gareth did. He built that universe and everything aesthetically matches, and that tank he has in the creator is when it comes through the trees. And I was like, whoa, where did this come from? But the actual design of it, all the curvatures and all the beveled edges, everything fitted in right down to the nuts and bolts on the robots. Yeah. And everything had been so well thought out, and I was just watching it and I was thinking, this is like a concept art 101 heaven. This thing, it is. It's just superb, and I think Neil and the team did that with a lot of their films, even down to Chappie, and you watch those films and everything is so those universes are so self-contained and so well developed and thought out, even down to the logos and the graphics on the sides of vehicles and the paintworks. That I think sells it. And it's again, Interstellar does that really well, where everything is being thought out about within that universe.
Yes.
The suits match, and then you've got TARS, the robot. I mean, the robots are absolutely so cool. Whoever thought of that?
Yes.
You would never in a million years think of a robot that was just almost like made of like rectangular pieces.
Yeah, a Rubik's Cube robot. And it actually works, and they show it in function and how it actually, it's not just like, all respect to R2-D2, but that just clunks around, right? And then they just make it float. And it's got this little pointy thing, an electric shocker thing. So TARS is like, okay, this looks cool. It's nice and sleek. Yes, this Nolan. We like, you like this aesthetic. And then he does all these motion things. Like, okay, yes, great sci-fi. And I still, what hurts me about Interstellar, and I love that film so much, is how good the design is and how grounded it is. Because personally, if it was just me, I'd sprinkle some exotic dust over it to add a bit more like, CGI effects, something a bit more exotic like in terms of sci-fi and the ship, like how rudimental things are. Like, it's so perfect for that story and it needs it. But, I'd kind of like, add a bit of spice that needs to be there, but that's perfectly fine. Regarding your career, so when you went freelance, what was your first gig?
First gig. Oh, wow. I think my first gig, I think I was doing some stuff for the BBC. I think it was some World War One stuff I was doing for the BBC. One of my friends who worked in the studio previously, he had left and was working at the BBC, and then he found out I was leaving. Yeah, so I think it was our World War, the BBC, and I did quite a bit for the BBC early on, which was kind of bizarre because I wasn't really hitting sci-fi that much at all in those days. To be honest, I was just taking it, whatever came along. I was doing, TV commercials, literally everything from, there was an American brand called Butter Shaving or something like that. Yeah, just really bizarre stuff. But I never really got into the sci-fi stuff until probably round about 2016, when I was first started doing some work with Simon McQuoid, who is the director for the Mortal Kombat films. And then that was more sci-fi fantasy stuff, but that was really cool to work on because that was bonkers stuff that we were doing, and he'd got a script, and it was quite an epic, sprawling sort of sci-fi thing. And I think I worked. God, I think that was a pitch. And I think I worked on that for almost 9 months with him, which was like, I've never worked on a pitch that long since then, ever. It was crazy. But it got me to know Simon pretty well. And we've done a lot of work since. In fact, earlier on this year, I was doing another pitch for him. For some sci-fi stuff. Speaking to him, he said no one was biting, which was a shame because it was kind of cool. It was kind of post-apocalyptic sort of sci-fi stuff. It was quite unusual and quite dark as well, which was nice. Yeah.
You mentioned you like Blue Sky. Is that still the case? Because it sounds like obviously when you did the with the gaming side of things, when you like doing, like, I guess, game ideas and sending them across, like, is that something, because there's obviously like a double-edged sword with kind of pitch work sometimes, because you get to throw out ideas, but then those quickly get rejected because people are trying to like figure out what's going on and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you still relish Blue Sky?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love doing that whole process of constantly thinking and reinventing things and quick turnaround stuff. I really enjoy doing that. When I've done work with Double Negative, that was great. We were doing Robotech, the ill-fated Robotech film that got canned, and the first few months we were literally just, anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, see what you can come up with. There wasn't even really a script, I don't think, at that point. And we were coming up with all sorts of crazy stuff. And it was absolutely brilliant. It was just joyous to do that, to just go, this huge, absolutely huge spaceship come robot has crashed. What are we going to do with this? And it was... That was really good. But I love that stuff. I love that rapid turnaround of, you'll throw some ideas in and your feedback comes back and go, no, try this direction. Right. Okay. Well, we'll try that. And then you get more feedback and right, well, we'll try it this way. Yeah. I prefer doing stuff like that because with games, in fact, I was talking with someone the other evening about this. With games, you're very much more regimented over an extremely long period of time. When you've been working on a game, and games can take up to 4 years to actually get out the door, by that time, you're really bored. You've seen absolutely every inch of that game. Every single design, every single mistake that you've made that's still in the game that you want to get changed, but you can't. And yeah, having that huge amount of time on one subject matter is absolutely, for me, it's killer. It's absolutely killer. Whereas, if you could be on one film one day and then you get a call and they'll say, actually, we need you to jump on this TV show for a few days. Can you do that? And then you're back on the film again, and that kind of stuff I love. Because again, like I was going back before, it just keeps the brain ticking over, which again feeds into doing your own personal work, because once your brain's fired up that much, it means that you've got more ideas coming out and you can get more ideas down for your personal work. I have folders and folders and folders of, they're called like new ideas or miscellaneous ideas. Yeah. And I'll go in there and there's just like this mass of just ideas that haven't been brought into realization yet, but they're there, and that's all because I've been working on projects and maybe something's not sat right in the project. And I've gone, you know what? I could take some of those ideas and put it into my stuff, so it all helps because it's just one big perpetual loop. You're always sort of feeding into the client work, but the client work feeds back into you, and it's just give and take all the time.
So those folders, are they more like a little personal pantry of like ideas and nuggets that you use?
There's tons, and it's a mess.
Yeah. Are some of those, are they mainly like, even though it's a mess, putting that to one side, like how strategic is it? Because I guess some of those, are they more like, okay, it didn't work for this project, but I know it's got a life in it, so I'm going to put it there? Yeah. Or do you kind of like leave a scribble knowing that this will definitely be something useful and you still put it there on the shelf?
Oh yeah, because there's sometimes I'll build a ship and I'll get carried away and completely build it out. And then go, you know what? I don't even know what scenario to put this in, or what kind of mood I'm in. And then some couple of months later, I can be like, I did that, and that would go perfect if I did this. And then that image becomes, it gives birth, and it's created, and yeah. So definitely that kind of stuff happens to me all the time. All that stuff I know at some point I'm going to come back to it and use it. Even if it's parts that I've built and parts of spaceship where I'll go, actually, I really like that section, but I don't like the rest of the ship. And then, I can be working on something else and go, that would fit on that. Perfect. And you mix and match them. And then the brain kicks in and you start creating again.
It's a very strange question, But with those folders and with those files and nuggets of ideas, do they get utilized, or are a lot of them covered in dust?
Oh no, they get used all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm constantly. Sometimes I'll use it to fire inspiration.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll sit there and I'll go, right, what am I going to do today? You know, if I'm not working, I like to do something and create something. And sometimes you can be like, I kind of know what I want to create, but it's just not there. It's just on the peripheral. And then you start looking through them folders and you go, actually, that would be really cool if I grab that bit or grab that ship and I can put it in this scenario. So yeah, they do. But I find I have to keep updating them all the time because as I'm building stuff, I'll go, oh, actually, I'll just shelve that ship for a moment because I've actually got another idea and I'll start building stuff. And then sometimes you end up with 6 or 7 half-built spaceships or half-built sets that I just drop in there and go, right, I'm going to come back to them. They're going to be handy, but today I'm not feeling it. It's not. They're not ready yet. They need to cook a little bit longer, or my brain needs to cook a little bit longer.
That sounds absolutely fascinating, and I'd love to see it in action one day. I'm sure I will. So interesting. With that said, so that's almost like you skip the traditional reference process of gathering reference. You go straight to this part of already that's amazing.
Yeah, I've never done that. Never done that, and that's why I'm always, when I see people and they've done all these thousands of sketches and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so janky. I wing it that much, but I just do not do it. I find that my stuff is better when it's spontaneous.
Interesting.
If I start sketching stuff out, I get frustrated and go, I'll just start building it anyway.
To me, that sounds like, obviously sketching, that sounds like sketching to me. It's just a different way of doing it, because they're kind of rather than it being pencil or stylus to the canvas, it's a case of a cross between kit bashing, but it's ideas that you've already kind of half cooked. I'm not a professional baker, but you have your starter when you kind of bake or something. It's kind of that's so sick. I want to start doing that. I want to start doing it in a meditative way. A chance for you to flex, and this can be specifically just sci-fi ones or spaceship focused ones or whichever ones you want. Just give us a list of some of the things that you've worked on, and particularly ones that you have a close place to your heart. Or not. That's fine as well.
I'm just trying to think. So fun stuff that I've really enjoyed working on was Matrix Resurrections. Even though it was a really bad film, it's not a really bad film. It's just not as good as the other three. And the other three, the first ones, you don't get much better than the first one. But to actually build that IO dock out was absolutely brilliant to do. It was so much fun. And I really, really loved it. And it came as sort of an antidote because we'd all just been quashed with Robotech getting canned. And then Ravi at DNEG had said to me, what are you doing now? And I said, I'm not doing anything. He said, do you want to work on the Matrix? And I was like, that's a bit of a stupid question, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. He said, at least then you get to say, I've worked on a Matrix film. And I was like, yeah. And then he told me what he wanted me to do. And it was like, you've got about 6 weeks to do it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like heaven,
Just to quickly jump in there, 6 weeks is a time frame. Is that rubbing your hands together? That's plenty of time, or is that still that's a short time?
I had it done in about 3 days.
Amazing. Please carry on.
But it was just I had the first iteration done in a couple of days, and then it was just right, okay, we need this specifically. It needed I think it was a central platform, and it needed platforms coming off this. And so, yeah, and by the time we finished, it had gone to like 5-6 weeks because we were getting feedback off from Lana. And then I think with that one as well, it was so nice to see it on screen because it was almost 1-to-1. Which I'd never seen before. And the fact that it was only on for a couple of seconds, but I knew looking at it straight away, I was like, oh my God, it was almost like they threw the modeling. So that one was really, really, really nice to do. Some of the other stuff has just been so much. Obviously there's Romulus, it was just heaven as far as I was concerned, just like a pig in muck. I did, was it last year or the year before? Might have been last year. I did a Chinese science fiction movie, and I believe it was supposed to be out now, and I believe it's been delayed because they're still doing the visual effects for it. But I spent some like 6 months designing the main spaceship for that. And even though it was hell on earth, I've really got a soft spot for it because the spaceship is just utterly ridiculous. And that was kind of nice to do. And then, you know what, as well, I've worked on things and not even known what they are. Because especially at DNEG, there was that much of a rapid turnaround and stuff. I mean, you could be working on a film about killer tigers, and the next thing you know, you're working on something from World War II. Yeah. And it's not until you actually see stuff on screen and you go, oh, I actually remember doing something like this. I wonder if that was what we were actually doing. So I'd worked on a ton of stuff, obviously the Robotech stuff, which was absolutely brilliant. Some of my favorite shots. I don't like a lot of my work. I think as soon as it's done, I'm going, that's rubbish.
Yeah,
needs to go in the bin. But I'll post it out and see what people think. It's always nice to get feedback. Robotech was really nice. Again, some of the game stuff I've worked on, the Space Pirate game was utterly brilliant. And I was designing, I spent a lot of time on the main ship because you could walk around the main ship. So it wasn't just the exterior, it was the complete interior as well. And we had that at such a high level of detail. We were all heartbroken when that didn't come to fruition. Maybe one day it'll get resurrected. I don't know. That would be lovely. But to be honest, I think everything I've worked on, I've really enjoyed. There was a small rom-com film that I did quite a few years ago, and the film's dreadful. I think it's called Moonshot. And I remember doing the stuff on that, and that was really, really fun to do because they wanted that sort of 70s sci-fi. And then they said, oh no, we sort of want it almost like 2001. It was sort of a mix. And that was really nice to do. And then I've done like, there's the other stuff I've done, like, Masters of the Air, and then Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was really, really nice to work on because that's another favorite franchise. And then just doing stupid stuff like Aquaman, and the Meg. The Meg was just hilarious to do because we were doing keyframes, and I remember I was on holiday, and we had the storyboards come through, and I said to Ravi, if you don't give me that one with the octopus, I said, I'm never speaking to you again. And when I came back off holiday, he left that one for me. Bless him. So I don't even know if I've got a favourite, apart from Romulus, because there's obviously other things that went on there with that crew and everything. The one I'm working on at the moment, which I can't say what I'm working on, is an absolute riot. I'm having so much fun. And when I say about scale, this is off the chart scale.
Okay, cool.
And I'll, hopefully when it comes out, I'll be able to put some stuff up about that. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, that wasn't a very fair question because it is clear that, and obviously having spoken over the years as well, like you clearly love film, you love
Yeah, yeah.
everything to do with it. And to say like which one do you like is not never a fair question. It's fair for me. It's nice for me to ask, but even then, like to people to answer is a bit torturous.
Yeah.
But putting away the sci-fi angle and the spaceship angle, because you worked on a nice range, everything from rom-coms to giant sharks and everything in between. Almost like anti-sci-fi. Which other genre does kind of like pull you in a similar kind of like way that sci-fi does?
I like World War II stuff.
Mm.
I really like World War II stuff. I'm not very good at doing it, but I'm a sucker for a good war film. A real sucker for war films. I'm actually a sucker for westerns as well.
Interesting.
I love cowboy films, especially. I mean, I used to love Sergio Leone. Few Dollars More and Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and was it Zapata? I think the other one. I love all that type of stuff. That's just, they're brilliant, and they're great to watch for, if you want to know how to frame a film, and watch Sergio Leone stuff, because it's a masterclass. It's epic. The framing that he does in that, and stuff like Once Upon a Time in the West. Is it Once Upon a Time in the West? Is an absolute classic with Charles Bronson. I mean, that opening sequence where all the train station, just to watch that opening sequence and learn about framing and composition. And if you don't get it from that, then you just leave. It's just it's a masterclass, absolute masterclass. But yeah, I love really decent war films. Apocalypse Now is just an absolute beast of a film. Saving Private Ryan, and all a lot of that stuff. Yeah, and the other thing I do like is, and I'm an absolute sucker for Victorian horror films.
Interesting.
Right? Anything that's like, I don't know if, did you ever used to watch Penny Dreadful?
No.
You never watched
But I'm aware of it.
Yeah. Watch it. It's utterly brilliant. It's amazing. They're going after Dracula in London, and it's like, it's just crazy. And there's werewolves in it, but it's all set in Victorian times. And there's something about that era and horror films. They're really cool. That's why I'm really, really interested to see what the new Frankenstein film is going to be like, because it looks so beautiful. Because I love Guillermo del Toro's stuff anyway.
Yes.
His whole. I mean, there's another guy, for aesthetics and design. I mean, my God, you could go through his entire catalog, and everything. Even Pacific Rim. Is another one of my favorites. I mean, talk about scale.
Of course, yes.
It's just an incredible looking film.
What an amazing filmmaker, and somebody who gets the creative process. I don't mean get as in like in a snobby way. Like, he sees the power that once you know how to use it, like what magic can be made and how great it can make your film.
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth, for me, that was my first proper exposure to him as a filmmaker. I think he did Mimic as well. I don't remember watching that before.
Mimic's really cool.
Pan's Labyrinth absolutely blew me, but that gave me the District 9 kind of like feeling every time I watch it. Like, it's just so fucking original. It's so fresh, and the creature designs, and it's a fairy tale, right? But it's so disturbing at the same time. It's absolutely brilliant. So and I think, I don't know if you agree, but like when it comes to like Victorian or anything that's period kind of stuff, I think it is because it's set in a different time, and you can't really fake that aesthetic. So you kind of have to make things. The costumes have to be authentic. The buildings still exist, so you can still kind of like go there, literally travel backwards in time. So most likely it's naturally lit, not much digital, at least in terms of like the effects and stuff. And I think it does feel like a history lesson in a weird way. That's what I found. Did you watch Nosferatu this year?
Yeah, I did. It was really good.
That's a similar kind of era, right?
And he's now doing werewolf one, isn't he?
Yes.
Which is, it's going to be epic, because his stuff's pretty bonkers. So anything like that, I really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all like I said, all that type of stuff. That those guys that do all that sort of world building, like
Mm-hmm.
what Del Toro does and stuff like that, I absolutely love. And I mean, I think anything that builds a universe that seems to be believable and tight, then I'm in. I know there's a lot of people that hate it, but there's a film called The Keep, which
Not heard
is
of that.
which is a really early one
I'll write
by,
that down.
oh my God, is it? It'll come off. If you do a search, it'll come up. The Keep, and it's about this like monastery, and there's like something evil in the keep in the castle, but all these Nazis turn up and they think it's full of gold, but they actually
Okay.
unleash this creature.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and it's got a really cool score by Tangerine Dream as well. It's like, but for me, there's something about that film, and I hear so many people going, "Oh, it's dreadful," but I actually really enjoy it, and it's the aesthetic in it is
Yeah.
lovely, and with the music and everything, it's just this one package. And I'm trying to think who the director is now, because he's a really famous director now.
I just had it up a
Um,
second ago. Uh, Michael Mann, of course. Michael
yeah,
Mann.
yeah, Michael Mann,
Yeah.
yeah, and he hates it. And I believe now someone's done a restoration and has done a 4K release of it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what this new restoration, because I think it's got different scenes and so forth. And I'd really like to see it. And it's quite dark as well. It gets quite sinister when this
Interesting.
creature starts bumping all the Nazis off.
There's so many like, just even in, because I guess like with film we would tend to like mark eras by the biggest hits or the ones that are really like impactful culturally, but in between you got these little gems that just exist and we're never aware of.
Yeah.
One of to be fair, it's not a craze. I was just going to say it's a thing I've really gotten into, but I haven't watched a few recently. Is there's two video series. You've probably seen the Criterion Collection, the Criterion Closet, where the filmmakers and actors just pick their like best DVDs and say you got to watch these.
Yep.
And then there's one I think is a French equivalent called Conbini, I believe, where they go to a DVD shop. There's a great Christopher Nolan one because he goes a bit more in depth. He's with Cillian Murphy because around the time of Oppenheimer,
Yeah.
and they kind of like oh, you should watch this film. You should watch this film, but it gives context as to why. And then he says things like, that's the film that I told you to watch in preparation for Oppenheimer. This is the film I
Right.
made Heath Ledger
Okay.
watch in preparation for Joker, and all this
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. So it gives this amazing like nuggets of like insight as to the inspirations. But one theme that I saw, and this is from the likes of like, you know, Francis Ford Coppola to even modern filmmakers, a lot of their picks I've never heard of. And
Yeah.
it's very olden ones or
Yeah.
filmmakers that I know by legend, but never know their filmography. And back to your point as well before about, especially particularly westerns and even older films, the one thing that they got right, and maybe I'm being too critical, but saying it's lost in modern times, is their eye for composition. And maybe it's because of the lack of correction you can make in post and all that kind of stuff. Like, for some reason, maybe they were savants or whatever, but they nailed it, and so many directors did.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that they pick and they showcase is a lot of their films, just even like the covers of the DVDs or whatever, they just look absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And speaking of Michael Mann, ashamedly, for the first time in my life, I'd recently watched Heat. I'd never
Yeah.
watched that,
Awesome.
bro.
What, that gun battle in the street is
The gun
absolutely
battle.
mind blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mind-blowing.
And in that DVD thing I mentioned, Christopher Nolan literally like, you know, just gets excited of it because he literally admits that I ripped this off for The Dark Knight because I
Yeah.
love this film so much. And there's a great like kind of directors roundtable with him and Michael Mann and Al Pacino and Rob De Niro and the talk and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But specifically about Heat, just the cinematography, some of the shots, very iconic to this day. I looked at that and thought, I know I haven't seen it, but I've seen this in so many films subsequently.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's one of those that I wouldn't say has been ripped off so much, but clearly has influenced so many people. Like
Yeah.
they just say we just got to make it look like Heat.
Definitely.
and all these other things as well.
Definitely. Have you seen The Sorcerer?
No.
Mate, you got
Is
to
that
watch
Michael
it.
Mann as well?
No, that's I think it's Frederick Forsyth who did The
Okay.
Exorcist. And it's the story of these three guys who are taking a truck of what's the explosive? They've got the liquids. It's really unstable. And they've taken this explosive on a truck
Yeah.
through the jungle. And mate, it's
Okay.
amazing. It's amazing. And there's so many you'll find this in so many people's, like directors will say this is in their top 10.
Okay.
And you
Okay.
watch it and you'll see why it's
Okay.
a masterpiece. Yeah, it's an incredible film and pretty damn dark as well. And it's the guy that played Chief Brody out of Jaws
Okay.
is in it, and he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's a really the nitrous, liquid nitrous. That's it that they're
Okay.
taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all unstable, but yeah, it's proper nail biting.
Okay. Definitely gotta check those out for sure. So let's get to our, I think we call it specialist segments or whatever we're gonna be called. But yeah, some questions. I guess the first one we may end up debating whether they're gonna keep it or not. But let's try anyway. The Cryopod segment. So we're gonna shoot you off for X amount of light years for an unspecified mission. If any, do you have a top 3 things that you would need with you on that journey?
Can I take me dog?
Of course you can. Yeah. We can figure that out.
Yeah, I gotta take the dog. Yeah,
Yes.
God, couldn't leave her. Flipping hell. You know what? I was thinking about this before, and I was thinking, oh my God, he's gone and asked the most difficult question I could possibly imagine. I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I'd have to take me PC.
Okay.
Although I would expect that if I'm in cryo sleep, it's probably going to be a bit outdated by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have to do that because otherwise I'd get really bored when it came out and I wouldn't have anything to do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that, and definitely my tablet. I have a Samsung tablet
Okay.
and I love it. It's like it's not so much, I don't do sort of 2D sketching in it, but I've got, I'm useless at using ZBrush. I can't use it. There's something in my brain that it's like getting a big fish slapped across my face. It's just like, no, it's not happening. But I use Nomad Sculpt, and I use it a lot by where I'll transfer stuff into, and it's great for me if I want to do like, creature heads or, or little bits for spaceships that are a little bit different. And I love doing that. I can sit for hours just messing around on that. It's great. It's like therapy, it's like messing with clay. Whereas I find that ZBrush is like it's too much. It's too much like going back to school and you got to learn too much. And I'm like, no, I'm not into that. I'm not into tutorials or anything like that. No, it's like, give me something that's really easy to use, and I'm happy. I think that's probably why I've stuck with Max, is because I know it. And every time I go and look at Blender and I go, oh no, I'm going back to school. I don't want to do this.
No, but yeah.
Even though I know I should be switching over to it because it's so much. Seeing what it can do is just like, I really want to mess with them tools and create stuff. Whereas Max is more like brute force. I think I was having this conversation with Alex Nice the other night, and the two of us were laughing because I said we must be the only 2 people left in the universe that use 3D Studio Max. And yeah, bless them.
Now I think there's a few of you guys still holding it strong. I remember when I switched to Blender, it was, I even thought still to this day, it's been definitely a good few years now. Probably even like, wow, it's weird. It still feels like a sort of recent thing, but it's easily 5 years. And still teething issues, still like, I came from Maya, so I still miss certain things, and I still like go back, get the 30-day trial just to open some of the old files, just so I can export them back into Blender and figure stuff out, because you could just throw so much in Maya and it will still kind of like work, whereas in Blender you used to like just start crying very, very quickly. But at the same time, again with tools like as long as it works, you can do whatever you want, as I'm sure you know. But there are some cool things in Blender that I'm sure you'd very cleverly exploit, and some nice random things you can kick out and all that kind of stuff. But I'd say it took me about a solid 6 months to really kind of like make the switch. I know you got all the, like, you can change the bindings and what have you and stuff, but yeah, I'd say that. But Nomad Sculpt, what I will say in particular is, what's so great about it is how easy it is to use and how much you can throw at it on an iPad or on a tablet, for example. You can get some very crazy detail on this thing, and it doesn't crash, and it's not lagging or whatnot.
It's ridiculous. There's been times where I've brought files into Max, and Max has gone, I'm not loading this. This is like way too much. You need to go back and lower the resolution on this, you know. I love it. It's they're doing it they're doing like a beta for the PC now at the moment. If you can get that to come out on the PC, it's going to be proper game changing because it's so accessible. Way easier than like I said, the likes of ZBrush. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, because sometimes I'll run out of steam on the tablet, and I've got the one I've got is the 14-inch Ultra one, and it's got a fair bit of oomph to it. But to have it on my main machine, with all the processing power and the RAM that I've got, would be just like amazing, because I could literally just like go to town without worrying about stuff's going to crash, and then optimize it, and you know, because you keep having to optimize it and redo stuff. But yeah, I love it. I think it's really nice to use.
So on the Cryopod, we're taking the dog,
the
PC, and the tablet. Excellent.
That'll do.
So Dropship is essentially one of your designs that hasn't, or is not part of any existing IP already, but you'd love to see, or you think would fit perfectly into an existing IP. Do you have one?
I do. Okay, there we go.
Let's go.
So this will show you just how really janky my stuff is. I really liked the aesthetic that they created for Dune, and when I was doing this stuff, I was thinking, oh, you know what, I could see this in that Dune 2 TV show, quite easily see this. You know, I was fortunate enough that when I was working on Dune 2, I got to redesign some of the ships, which I know I've never said before what I did on Dune 2, because we're not allowed to show it. But I suppose talking about it is not going to do any harm. But yeah, I was redesigning some of the ships. I'm presuming that they're going to be in the third film, because they are enormous. They are absolutely enormous. And I remember working with Patrice, and he kept saying to me, no, go bigger, go bigger. And it was going to be in the end of Dune 2, where they all the Fremen all walk onto this ship. But it wasn't the ship that I had done. The ship I had done was probably about 5 times the size of that. And it was like these proper huge, like, war machine things. So I can only presume that they will be in the third film, if I get lucky. If not, I'll release them once the third film's out and we're allowed to show them, and I'll say what I was doing. But yeah, so this thing is like, again, if I just put this into clay mode, you can see really just how super, super, super simple this thing is. There's hardly any detail in it. And again, this for me was that sort of same aesthetic, which was like very angular. And again, it was just doing like a really sort of rough, in fact, I think I've got it here. Where is it? Really rough sort of PSD. If that's showing up. And again, you know, I've done a really sort of rough matte painting in the background. And then I'll use this as sort of pseudo environment map, so that when I render out, it'll all match in. But yeah, that one, when I was looking at it and I was thinking, yeah, when I saw the questions, I was thinking, yeah, that one would go. I think I've got another one as well, which is probably a little bit more dated. You'll see my dreadful filing system now
Okay.
if I can find this. So this one I'm going to load up now. To me, reminded me when I was doing it, and in fact, quite a few people said this to me afterwards when I posted it up, that it reminded them of Chronicles of Riddick, which is another film that I absolutely love, because the world building in that second film was incredible, absolutely incredible. And if people haven't seen it, then go and watch it, because the world building, all the necromonger stuff, is absolutely superb. That whole universe. And again, this one again was sort of like Dune-esque type stuff. When it decides to load in, come on, Max. So have we got any other cameras on this? Let's see, cameras. No, just one. But again, it's very, very, very simple, blocky. And again, this is what I'm talking about before, when I've been doing designs for like that previous ship, that will spawn me other ideas for designs on, say, for example, this type of ship, because it's the same sort of that sort of ribbed feeling thing, that type of thing. And I did the same, trying to match the columns in and created them to have that sort of vibe to it. Yes. And that poor bloke seems to have lost his head there, because I've been putting other heads. But yeah, I tend not to put too much detail. So those heads there, they're the ones that I've actually done them. Look at the face count on that. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just like white. They were done in Nomad Sculpt.
Nice.
But I should say that one was done in Nomad Sculpt. Okay. If we just put this onto standard so it doesn't flicker around. Yeah.
And a question regarding the specifically the first ship. When you were cooking that one up, did you have like Dune in mind, or was it only when you was close to completion thinking, or even when I asked the question, was that when that kind of like connection was made?
Yeah, it was towards the end, because when I was doing it and I wanted something, I like to do stuff that's quite moody. And so again, when I was doing this, and I started adding in, the little characters sort of thing, and adding in some of the buildings into the rock faces and making it feel a bit more brutalist. And then I thought, you know what, that's actually, you could actually see that being in that, is it Dune Prophecy, the TV show? Because I've seen some of the work that they'd done on that, and I was like, oh, that's quite nice. So again, yeah, I could see that going into that, no problem. Yeah.
Cool. And moving on to our last segment, project breakdown. Do you have a project that you could break down for us?
Yeah, let's have a look. Okay, so again, super, super, super simple ship design. I kind of like this one. Like I said, I don't usually like a lot of my stuff, but this one, again, the design was really, really simple. I wanted to do something that was a little bit unconventional, and then also give it a little bit more of the piece to have a little bit of a threat or a story, because to me, again, that's one of the huge things that I find is really important, is to tell story. So I think on this one, if we go to camera 2, again, it's really basic stuff. There's not a lot of detail in there, except for the explosion stuff, which is a complete and utter cheat. Because I used jammers, the big, medium, big, small, big, medium, small stuff. There's actually a kit with some knights in armor and the
Right.
horses. Well, he did mud splashes. They're the best thing ever because they just
Yes.
work brilliant for debris. So I just blasted a load of them into this. And then this is all shot in volumetric fog.
Mm-hmm.
So the lights are pretty cool. And then if I go to this, yeah, that's done it. Great, thank you. So this is the original TGA.
Yeah.
Or one of the original TGAs that I've done, and it's shot in fog. And obviously there's no alpha channel in this. If I switch the alpha channel on, you can see that it's there. It'll just be white. And then, to be honest, it's just a question of layering up and layering up and layering up and adding lights in. Doing a separate pass of adding like the little guys in, just putting lights on, adding the small lights in for scale, and then I have a host of explosions that I can just drag and drop, which is always really handy to have. And it's just nice to build up libraries of stuff, and I've got libraries of lights that I've made.
Mm-hmm.
See, I can't even remember half the stuff. I see there's a little light there. Again, it's just keeping it really simple, really, really simple, and then just adding stuff over the top because I'm not one for sitting at stuff for days on end or months on end. And I see people putting this up on, you see them on ArtStation or whatever. And I've been working on this project for three months. And I'm like, no, that'd drive me insane.
Okay.
This is literally a day, not even a day to get this done. It's just like really rough model, get it in, slap some textures on it. And I mean, most of the time I don't even bother properly mapping them out.
Yeah.
I hate UV mapping.
Yeah.
So it's literally everything's cube mapped. I'm just like, just because you fix it later on, you fix it in Photoshop. And I see that a lot with people. I mean, people doing all these movies at the moment where everything is like, you've got spaceships flying across and, they've all these wonderful things. And I think they're lovely, but for me, it's kind of missing the point because I like to look at a piece and not be told what to think. Whereas when you've got a short movie that someone's done, then the way the ship flies, where it's flying to, the aesthetic that's as it's passing by, that's all given to you on a plate, and that kind of dumbs everything down to a level that, I mean, that's just me. I mean, I do really do appreciate the work, and some of the stuff I've seen, that a lot of people are doing at the moment is absolutely beautiful. But I would prefer people to look at something and put their own imagination into what is going on and let them make their own stories up. I think for me, that's far more entertaining than having everything fed to you,
So on that note, sorry, please go on.
No, it's cool.
So on that note, because it's easy, and I'm sure you've had it. A lot of creatives get it as well. Like you can get lost. Obviously, the classic cliche that you get lost in the details. For example,
Yeah.
In this specific piece, because you're looking to keep things simple, how do you know when things are not getting simple from your creative process?
That's a really good question, because it's very very easy to I call it overcooking.
Mm-hmm.
You can overcook something so easy, which is why I always try and say less is more. And sometimes sometimes you'll do stuff and you'll go, I've done too much. I've done way too much. And I've done it where I've got halfway through an image and gone, there's too much going on. And I'll strip, I'll strip tons of layers out and go, well, that's better. You need stuff to be easily readable, and functional. and emotive at the same time. And I think sometimes you can stick way too much detail in, and it will ruin the effect, because what you essentially what you want to do with, say, like a piece like this is you want to be able to look at it and walk around the image, rather than having one thing that sticks out and drags you in and you completely miss the rest of the image. By all means, you can zoom in and have a look, and you can do pockets of detail, because that's another thing as well, is I try and do areas where I think the audience is going to look. And sometimes I've done it where some stuff has hardly got anything in the scene, but you want them to focus on that area, so you'll put slightly more detail in that area. And then they see that, but their brain assumes that the rest of the shot is equally as developed as that. And it's the oldest trick in the book, but it works. And sometimes it can save you a massive amount of time. And I think it's just knowing how to read the room, knowing where to put stuff, knowing how, what you want the audience to focus in on an image. Again, I think a lot of it boils down to storytelling. I think that everything needs to have a bit of a story to it, even if you're doing prop work.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking, when I do stuff, I always have backstories while I'm doing stuff. I've always got backstories of what this stuff is, what's going on, what has gone on before, what has gone on afterwards. For me, that just helps solidify a piece together. But yeah, this thing is fairly simple. A lot of the stuff was done in that one frame. So the ship and the rocks, they've all been done. Whereas sometimes I would do stuff that was on a separate pass, because I don't tend to do a lot of passes, as in, specular pass or Z-depth pass. I don't bother with any of that. I'll have the ship and it's lit, and I'll do that. And then the astronauts, I'll do that. And then the rocks, I'll render them out. And then I've got a multitude of layers, enough layers for me to mess around with, and composite it up. And I'll do numerous versions of this particular shot, until I'll go, you know what, that one's the best one. I'm going to concentrate on that. Sometimes I'll render the ship out 3 or 4 times in different angles before I go, you know what, that's the one. That's it. That's exactly what I want. So yeah, like I said, I don't believe in having to do stuff that's overly complicated to get across your story. The brain will fill in a lot of gaps.
So I have a few questions regarding this specific piece in your process. First one, does it have a name? What have you called it?
This is called Shields Down, or Who Dropped the Shields. Right.
And why that specific name? Obviously, it's quite self-explanatory, but why do you go with that kind of naming?
Because I just thought
I think there's funny. A lot.
I just thought
exactly. Yeah.
I just thought it was funny. Maybe the space janitor had knocked the wrong button, and the shield's gone off. And next thing, one of these asteroids has careered into the back of it. Well, these poor buggers are out doing a spacewalk and are suddenly watching the whole ship obliterate in front of them. That was my dark sense of humor. I thought it was funny anyway.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I think there's a lot can be said, like in the naming specifically, because it does add.
Yeah.
Just that alone tells you the tone and potentially which way to approach it. For example, obviously, I know a lot of the time when you send images over, the title is never seen. But I guess from your perspective, it does add a lot as well. A bit of a similar kind of thing, but in a different kind of space. The film composer Michael Giacchino, when he names his tracks in the films, it's literally that same moment, like we just explained. So it would be because he did the Planet of the Apes movies, it'd be Caesar Falls Over in that particular thing, and he'd name the track Caesar Falls Over. But obviously, the image, the piece itself is very almost seems way more epic versus the title, but it's a nice little kind of little fun thing. And obviously, you mentioned before by keeping things simple, but also storytelling and keeping the viewer's focus. Which area or aspect of the image did you spend most time on? Maybe not just in terms of like actual hours, but thinking energy and strategic energy.
Probably the explosion.
Hmm.
Because I was trying to get it so that it was, because I really didn't give myself enough room to play with, because basically in the 3D scene, it's a lot of debris, and then there's an omni light in there. But I wanted to have that layering type feel to it and give it a bit of depth. And me being stubborn, I was like, no, I will sort it out, you know. But yeah, having that, and also as well making it as dynamic as possible, so that obviously you've got the framing at 45 degrees, which is, you know, in cinema, 45 degrees means danger, basically. If you ever see a shot, which is called a Dutch angle.
Yes.
This isn't so much a Dutch angle, but the ship is a sort of a Dutch angle. And so doing that, and then having that point of light at the back of the ship, so it's almost framing it. It's almost got that dynamic that's going on, which was kind of what I was after. Yeah, this one turned out okay. Yeah, it's okay. It was a fun shot to do, you know, and it was just something in the spirit. I think I'd made the ship first, and then thought, what am I going to do with the ship?
Right.
And I thought, oh, you know, I'll blow it up. and then I thought, oh, I know, I'll put some poor buggers outside, and they're trying to get back into the ship, and yeah. It made me laugh. I know I shouldn't, but it made me laugh. You've got to have them little wins when you're doing stuff.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
What aspect ratio is this?
Oh God. I always work at as close to sort of 70 millimeter. I love 70 because I love 70 millimeter films.
Yes.
You know, if we hark back to that sort of era, that sort of Cecil B. DeMille type stuff, 70 millimeter films and composition in 70 millimeter is, it's just amazing to have stuff that's that wide angle. Always feels epic. In Close Encounters is 70 millimeter, and it looks amazing, you know. So I tend to work. I think this is something like 8,000 by 3,467. That's generally what I work at now. Unless, you know, a client will say, we need it a square of frame, or I'm given frames to work with.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you'll get given frames and you'll say, we need a paint over on this, or we need you to sort the matte painting out for the back of this, or concept. And then you have to stick with that aspect ratio. But a lot of the time I'll work with as wide as I can get it, to be honest.
Sick. Awesome. I think that wraps up our breakdown. And just before we wrap up the episode itself, Cole, it's been absolutely brilliant. Absolutely many gems, filmmaking tips, creative tips, and all that kind of stuff. Any final thoughts or words or musings from yourself to the listeners before we shoot off in the cryopod?
No, you know what, mate? It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to speak with you. You know, I mean, I know what it was like when we were at 101.
Yeah,
you know, It was like, you know, all we did was have a laugh all day.
Yes.
It's always good to speak to you. And you know, I think in this day and age, the way the industry is at the moment, it's just perseverance. You know, keep practicing. Keep doing stuff, keep doing crazy stuff. Don't listen to people, just keep moving forward and keep going. You know, that's the best thing. And watch movies. Yes. You know, if you want to understand anything, watch movies, because those guys have been doing it for so long, and it's where we take all our sort of our ideas from. You know, just go and watch old movies, watch new movies, you know, and just breathe it all in and learn from them. Yeah, it's not a bad way to educate yourself.
Oh, truly. No, I've had like a second renaissance with films. I thought I understood what I needed to understand about, at least I know kind of like how things are made behind the scenes, but going back and just studying them frame by
Yeah,
frame, then the intention, then the filmmaker's intention, then some of the subtext in between it, how
yeah,
that's executed, all that kind of stuff. And there's just a wealth of like, what I enjoy more now of film is there's so many roundtables, so many interviews with the directors, and they're speaking
yeah,
their intentions. Recently, I, you mentioned horror films throughout. Horror films, I normally run the other direction from them. So
hmm
only normally the great ones end up in my lap because they're just so good. Like you overlook the horror stuff. And typically I stay away from zombies, vampires, werewolves, and all that kind of good stuff. So you know all the go-to ones normally anyway. But this year, 28 years later came out,
yeah,
and that's something that I became obsessed with. Even more so hearing Danny Boyle and Alex talk about their approach and why they did things
yeah,
and why this and why that. And then
yeah,
we had an answer for every single thing. And that intention was like so infectious because sometimes when you're creating like, and I'm sure that was the case for them as well, like you're fishing around, you're trying to like, you know, grab something and whatever doesn't budge, you kind of just run with that. But the level of like almost assassin like way they kind of tackle these things was absolutely amazing. And yeah, it triggered a lot of things of like just trying to like decode what the filmmaker intends, the intentional way they obscure things just for the viewer's
mhm.
benefit, and that whole song and dance. But looking forward, obviously you mentioned Frankenstein. What films are you excited for, got your eye on coming up, whether they were things that you've worked on and also just general films that you'd like to see?
Yeah. The Frankenstein one, I'm really interested to see. That's that's going to be really nice. Like I say, I'm a sucker for anything like that. There's that. I think Matt worked on it. Hail Mary,
Mm-hmm.
which looks quite interesting. Which is the guy that wrote The Martian.
Yes, yes.
So that's coming out. That's going to look fairly interesting. Um, you know what? I think at this moment in time, there seems to be a lot fewer films coming out. So it's like whatever comes out, I really want to sit and watch it. You know,
Interesting.
there's a guy I watch who does film reviews, and he's just made his own film, and that's come out, which is I think it's called Shelby Oaks, and it's a
Okay.
horror film. I'm like you. I'm not a big horror film fan at all.
Okay.
Um, although I will say I have been watching Welcome to Derry, which
Okay.
has been phenomenal, and
Never
has
heard of
made
that.
me go back, and I watched the two It movies back to back the other night.
Ah.
Um, because I'm not really, like I said, I'm not really a big horror fan, but that particular one with the clown is actually really entertaining. Um, yeah, yeah, that they're quite fun. So yeah, and anything, I'm really looking forward to Spielberg's new one. That I think that's the biggest one on my hit list that comes out next year. Um, I think that one, obviously it's about UFOs. Is he going to do sort of something that's akin to Close Encounters?
Hmm.
I don't know. It's a bit of a tall order for him to try and get anything close to what that film was.
Yeah.
Because that film is for me, that's like the one of the pinnacles.
Yes.
Again, another just amazing film to watch for um, composition and structure and how a director thinks and works. There's some moments in that film that absolutely blow me away. Character stuff that happens, and I think what was going through his head to make him think
Yes. Yes.
that those two things were going to work together, and it just incredible. Um, so yeah, definitely Spielberg's new one. Um, what else is there? Yeah, to be honest, anything. I'm trying to watch as
Sick.
much as I
Love
can
it.
at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cole, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Mate, absolute pleasure. Cheers, Aaron.